Hey, what's up, comrades? We're here to talk about Fairy Tail Volume 26. And if you remember, we pick up right in the middle of this battle, but not quite. We start with Makarov. He's thinking about Mavis Vermilion, the first head of the first guild master of Fairy Tail, and begging for her help. Then we switch back over to Dude Meister, who is fighting Panther Lily. And so Panther Lily and him go back and forth. The suit is like a lot of explosion magic. Panther Lily is able to get some good blasts in or some good punches in. Wendy powers up Lily, and then she begs our homie guy over here, Mest, to help her out. But this guy does some like super powerful like flame attack and just blasts the shit out of everybody. I'm sorry. And they all look pretty rough. Panther Lily transforms back into his regular self. And so things are not going super great there. Meanwhile, over on like this flying barge, Altair and the rest of the asshole guys are like fucking around, and then they see this super giant, and it's Makarov using his giant skills. And they're like, "What the fuck?" And then the leader of the guild, the evil guild, is like Makarov. And then we get like 40 years ago. The year is like X736. And then Makarov's sitting around. He's like, what, the master of the Fairy Tail Guild? And the guy, so because Makarov's the third leader. So the second leader is like, yes, you're going to be the one, blah, blah, blah. And then Makarov thinks about how he received the position from Master Mavis to become the third leader and how he entrusted Makarov to take care of the guild and whatnot. So then he starts beating the shit out of this ship, like hurting the whole thing, smashing it to the ground. They blast it with like a cannon. And then Altair uses her like time reversal magic to make it work. And then the Hades guy, he sends out like one guy on like a paraglider, and then the rest of them, he's like, get out of here. And the guy in the paraglider, he has some ability where he like takes all the minions of the guild, and then he puts them, like he gathers them together and then flies off with them. So then Makarov's about to initiate fairy law, which is going to destroy all the enemies of Fairy Tail, right? We've had this before. And he starts counting down. And then meanwhile, Natsu finds Mest and Wendy and Panther Lily and everything. And then they look up and they see the guy who was sent off. Oh, and they all remember now because the memory manipulation powers that Mest was using obviously are no longer going. And they see all these bubbles, these tiny bubbles with people inside them. And they're all floating down, and then everybody, so like Lysiana and Mira and Elfman and Fairy Lady and Urza and Juvia and Natsu and them, and then Kara and Leo and Lucy and Gray. So everyone started getting attacked. So they start fighting these things. And then we see Zareth, and he's like, oh, another battle. I can't stand this. And then the rest of the evil guild is jumping down too. And then Altair's like, I'm going to go find Zareth. And the rest of them go off to do their own thing. And right as Fairy Tail's about to go off, the Hades is like Grimoire Law, which counteracts Fairy Law, and he's like, wait, this can't be. And then Makarov finally realizes that Mavis, the old leader, the second leader of Fairy Tail, is actually Hades. They're the same person. And he calls him Precht as well. And he's like, and then Hades is like, oh, it's been a long time, child. And so then they kind of like battle it out for a little bit. We get a little shonen anime battle between them, and then Makarov ends up getting defeated at the end of that. It's pretty badass. There's like all sorts of stuff, and the island like half explodes and stuff. But Hades comes out ahead, and the whole time Makarov's like, why are you doing this? What's wrong with you? And when Hades went off to like discover the true source of magic, he found Zareth, and it like quote unquote changed everything because he realized where magic like really comes from or something like that. He mentions the true essence of magic and all this stuff. And then right as Makarov is about to be completely blasted up so he can't fight anymore, he sends out a message, and then we see Laxus, and he's like walking around wearing like a robe in like a desert or something, and he like looks up and he's like, what the fuck was that? So he could be coming anytime soon. Meanwhile, we'll get more of the fights with all the Fairy Tail guys and like the minions or whatnot. And let's see. Oh, and then they use like a fire attack on Natsu, and Natsu eats it up. And then this asshole shows up. I don't remember what his name is. Let's see if it says it again here. You guys got blah, blah, blah. No, I don't remember. Anyway, so he is the crazy guy with the crazy eyes. And then he sends all the minions off, and then he uses... they're like, be careful. He's very strong. And the guy's like, we don't need weaklings. And he kills all them. And then Natsu's like, why are you attacking your own guys with this like black fire? And then we find out that this guy uses a Godslayer magic, fire magic. And then there's like a whole bizarre conversation about how he got his powers from Hades. And then Hades even talks about this before with Makarov, how he like went and he like found all these guys and trained them up. Or he doesn't say it to him, he's saying it to himself so that we know. And and all this stuff so that he made them more powerful or trained them or whatever. Then we see the goat guy. The goat guy is standing around with Lucy, Kara, Leo, and Grave. And then we see Juvia and Urza. They're fighting like this child-looking thing, which is talking like a machine. So that's fun. And then we get the blown up guy. He is fighting Mira Jane and Lysiana. Then there's like the fat guy who's all by himself. Oh, then there's Glasses guy. So Glasses guy is he's fighting Elfman and Fairy Lady. And then Altair is just wandering around looking for Zareth. And then Hades talks about finding the lost magics and teaching each one of his like minions, each one of these people I just talked about, all about the lost magics. And then we get a sexy shot going into chapter 218 of Lucy, Urza, and Juvia, which is excellent. I love this so much. I can't. And then we get like a super long, like shonen anime battle between Natsu and Crazy Guy, and they're going back and forth about eating fire and who can eat fire and who can eat what fire and what does it mean. And they're like fight. And like Natsu looks like he's on the ropes, and then he comes back, and then he's on the ropes again. And then we see like goat-headed guys like beating the shit out of Lucy and those guys. They're just like kicking the shit out of him. And then we get Natsu, and he's like stumbling around, and he sees Makarov, and he's super pissed off about he's injured. And then the fire guy like chases him, and then they talk about how Natsu has fear, and they can all sense that he has fear. And then Natsu's like, I do have fear, because he's remembering what Goddard told him before. And he says, it's not the fear of losing, it's the fear of not getting revenge on the guy who did this to the master. And then he starts like, now I'm all fired up. And so he starts charging up, which is excellent. And then him and the crazy guy, and then he starts beating the shit out of the crazy guy, who then uses some like super powerful like black fire magic, and Natsu uses some sort of like tree trunk magic. I think he just picks up a tree trunk and smashes him with it. And then Natsu gets like blasted with like as much power as this guy can do, like all his godly fire magic. And then Makarov grabs him, and he starts dragging Makarov into the fire. And then it's like something with Natsu, and it's like, wait a second, Natsu's magic's all gone. And that's right, because Natsu did it on purpose, because he drained all his fire magic away so that he could absorb this magic. And now he's got the combination of both Slayer magic and fire slaying magic, and he uses that to kick the shit out of Crazy Eyes. Just like demolishes him. And he's like, all right, master, let's go. And then he talks about not giving up, because at some point Makarov was like, we should just run. And Natsu's like, I'm not fucking doing that. We're going to teach him about Fairy Tail. We're going to fight. We got it, old man. And then he like collapses. So back over with Mary Jane and Lysiana, they're getting kind of beat up. And the conversation with Mary Jane and her like demon magic, what exactly is it called? It's like, dun, dun, dun. I can't use that. Satan Soul. So, and then the guy's like, I want to fight a demon. And Mary Jane's like, no. And then so he creates some sort of trap for Lysiana where he like covers her in vines and stuff. And Mary Jane's all tuckered out from like fighting before as part of the S-Class quest. And so Lysiana gets like a bomb strapped to her essentially. And Mary Jane has to use her Satan Soul. And then she starts beating the shit out of this guy and fighting him. But she's like all tuckered out and used a lot of her magic. So she's fighting and doing a really good job fighting this guy. But at some point, she's like running out of time, and she realizes she doesn't have enough magical power left to defeat him, even though she's given him like, because they're kind of evenly matched. And so she runs over, turns off her Satan Soul, grabs Lysiana, says something about, I hate to say it, but I don't have enough power left to defeat him. And then someone else is going to have to defeat him from our guild instead. And then it goes kaboom! And Mary Jane takes the entire like explosion. And Lysiana's like, no, sister, wake up. And then the guy's like super despondent. He's like, oh, that was it? That wasn't that impressive. Meanwhile, Altair is wandering around looking for Zareth. And finally she like sees him. And he's like, you're making me angry. And we see Wendy has caught up with Natsu and Makarov, and they're trying to get healed, but it's like not working. And then Makarov mentions the blackness from the scarf, and so she fixes that, and that gets them all healed up. Back over with Altair and Zareth, they like she's like, oh, we worship you. We want you to like create a world of just magic or something. And at some point, I think we missed it here. No, I think it comes up in a little bit. And he's like super angry, and so then they start fighting. We then switch over to Elfman and Fairy Lady, and they're fighting this guy who he's summoned like some sort of like they think he's a summoner because he summoned some stuff. And so Elfman's fighting that, and then the Fairy Lady goes to like use magic on him because usually like Lucy, when she summons, she doesn't have like a lot of magic herself, but this guy does. So he strikes at her with like a claw attack, and then Elfman gets up and like goes to fight him. And this is at this point, this is where we get like the conversation. So they got to get Zareth because Zareth's gonna like unlock their magic, and like there's something wrong with all these guys. Like they have some side effects or something to them using these lost arts. But once they get Zareth and he cleanses the world of all like the non-magic users, which is like 90% of the population, then it'll be a perfect world. And we see that everybody's kind of getting the same conversation. So don't worry, everybody's on the same page now. And then we head back over to Altair, and she has defeated looks like she's defeated Zareth, and that she is she's like very excited that she finally got access to him and whatnot. And she's like holding him very lovingly while he's kind of like passed out, thinking about like her magic world. Okay. Let's see. So then Elfman stands back up and he charges back up at this guy and he runs at him, and then he grabs like the arm that he created and takes it off, and he like hits him with it. But the guy creates like a shield, but at the same time he rips the glasses off the guy. And once the glasses are off, it allow Fairy Girl to do her like stone magic thing. And so she runs up to use it, but dun dun dun, he created new glasses. We find out his ability is not summoning; it's that he can create anything he wants with like his imagination, which is like completely ridiculous. So he creates this huge like stone tower, and then Elfman and the Fairy Girl they become like statues in this thing, and they're like thanking each other for helping each other out or whatever. And then the whole statue kind of like, or the whole tower explodes. And then Natsu's like, "What's that? All right, I'm going to go figure out what's going on." And then he's like, "Wait a second. I smell that crazy person from Galuna Island." And if you don't remember that, or Galuna Island, that's that's where they ran into Gray's friend, Leon, and when he was trying to summon somebody, right? And they had that, he wanted to release that demon so he could beat him for the master. This is like this is, what is this, volume 26? That was like volume 8 or something. It was a long time ago. And then there was that masked lady who had like the hidden magic that we know is Altair. So we know, because we've read this far, that he senses Altair. And then we get a last parting shot from the volume of Altair holding Zareth. And Natsu's like, "I'm going to go figure this out." And that wraps up volume 26 of Fairy Tale. So go ahead, like, share, subscribe, comment, and I'll catch you guys later. Bye.